find our places and we'll get started, please?
Yeah, just give me 2 seconds. Get this opened up. I'll make sure I have the latest agenda. This is going to this one.
Where's Connie? If we could rise and honor America by saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
Miss Martin. Where is she? I don't know where she is. Okay, I'm sorry. Mayor Caulfield.
Here?
Mr. Conway.
Here.
Miss Doherty. Here. Miss Faticante. Mr. Leahy.
Here.
Mr. Leary.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It is with great pleasure that I introduce 2 special people in our audience who are going to speak about the great foundation that Lowell High School has. And is it a pleasure to ask John Tebow and Brenda Costello to please come to the podium. They deserve a round of applause for their hard work for the students of Lowell High School.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think I'm just going to sit.
No, go ahead, Brenda. Good evening, and is it always this hot in here? A few weeks ago, we were requested to provide an update on the status of the Lowell High School Scholarship Fund, and we're happy to do that. My name is John Tebow. I'm the new executive director of the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, and the Community Foundation acts as the overseer, custodian, professional money manager, and an administrator of the Lowell High School Scholarship Fund, also known as the Campaign for Educational Excellence. I provided a small summary that hopefully was in your booklets tonight. Today, the Scholarship Fund consists of approximately 140 permanently endowed scholarships, which are with the foundation in perpetuity. And the intent is for these funds to grow not only in numbers, but also in value, to provide permanent scholarships for Lowell graduating high school seniors for as far as we can see into the future. Over the last couple of years, with the economy being what it is and the financial situation that we've all endured, there's been some adjustments in the value of the fund. But as of June 30th, the value of the endowment is a little bit over $3.2 million.
Wow, that's tremendous.
At its height, before the market adjustment that we saw, it was over $4 million. So there has been approximately $4 million raised in the 7+ years of the campaign. And over that period of time, in the 10 or 11 years that we've been handing out scholarships, this year we crossed over the $1 million mark in scholarships that have been granted to Lowell High School seniors. So, you know, it's a wonderful program. As I go around to the 22 communities that we serve, in addition to Lowell, the one thing that I'm asked in almost every community is, how do we get a scholarship fund at our high school like Lowell High School has? It really has become a kind of the benchmark for other high schools and what they're looking to achieve. And this is really a tremendous benefit to the town and an asset to the school. This year, I think many of you were there on May 19th at Honors Night. We distributed 178 scholarships valued at almost $180,000. So this will continue to grow, and without these endowments, these wouldn't be possible. Now, one of the things that has been a lot of fun for me is working with Headmaster Samaras, because he has such a passion for this program. And we feel like over the last 18 months or so, there's been kind of a lull in the drive and the ability to grow the scholarship fund. So we have put together a group of community leaders, Headmaster Samaras, we've brought Kendall Wallace, the McCullens back in, Louis Pedrogio, Herb Zakin, who's the CEO, Lowell High School graduate and the CEO of BJ's Wholesale, George Barakis. And we are putting a program in place that really is intended to transition across the headmasters. Headmaster Samaras has been really the passion and vision behind this. But what we want to do is provide some governance through this transition and moving forward. So we are in the process of creating a program that will have longevity. It will have its own board of directors that will be a supporting organization as a part of the community foundation, and will oversee the scholarship fund moving forward. So we're putting bylaws together. It will have a board. It will make decisions regarding how the scholarships are granted. They will oversee how it's invested, and we think this is a very positive effect. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to relaunch it, reintroduce it, probably in the fall. We will rename it the Lowell High School Scholarship Foundation, and relaunch it into the community and put a very significant new and vigorous fundraising effort behind this. So these are all very good things. In addition to just overseeing the fund, the Community Foundation provides a number of services. We oversee the grants, we cut the checks, we administer the students to make sure that they have to provide us proof of enrollment before they get their scholarships. We distribute the awards, we send out all of the notifications. So there's a lot of value-added administrative and back office work that we do in administrating this. So this has been a tremendously successful program. We're going to relaunch it into the future. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding, where we are, what we're doing, or where we're going, or if I can't answer it, I'm sure Brenda can.
Any members of the committee would like to present a question to Mr. Tebow? Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. Thank you for coming down. I just had a question. I was just wondering why did you want to rename it, or just to get a launch to?
We run into a lot of questions, and Brenda can answer this. When people write out a check for the Campaign for Educational Excellence, they're not sure if they're writing out a check and supporting the scholarship fund, or they're supporting some other activity, or they're supporting the band, or what have you. So this is going to be really a clarification point where when we're out fundraising, we're fundraising for the Lowell High School Scholarship Fund. And this has been an area of confusion for a while. The second thing is, quite frankly, by renaming it and relaunching it, it gives us a kind of a marketing launching point to go off back into the community.
Okay. I like the Campaign for Educational Excellence. It's too bad. I know it would be long to keep it in there, but I did like that, and I hate to see that go. But I mean,
time to
obviously,
move forward.
You guys know what you're doing, so thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just one quick comment. I'd like to applaud the foundation and Brenda Costello in particular for the work that you've done, because I think it is, I'm aware of no other public high school, maybe Boston Latin, that has the kind of endowment that we do. And my comment I want to add is this is a perfect time to relaunch. I don't know if you're aware, it is the 30th anniversary of the establishment of the Friends of Lowell High School, that parent group, and they're planning a big shindig in September. It'd be good to coordinate with
Now that, we'll certainly look into that.
the president, I don't know if her title is president or chairman, is Sharon Gallagher.
Yeah, I know Sharon.
But that would be a great coordinated effort to relaunch this whole movement and get us closer to that $5 million target. Thank you.
That's a great suggestion. I would like to point out that, Brenda Costello has been with this program for 7 years, and a lot of this is due to her effort and her work over those past 7 years. So she's been a very dedicated individual to make this happen, and a lot of, most of the credit goes to Brenda and Headmaster Samaras.
I would just like to say that John Tebow is the executive director of the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, and I can't say enough for his leadership, his dedication. I can't say enough for Brenda Costello. And it's the business community who are coming together as partners. And we all witnessed those students receiving those scholarships. And I'm not too ashamed to say that a tear was in my eye when many of those students, when their name was called out and they walked to that podium and received that scholarship. That scholarship probably meant they were going to go to UMass Lowell, Brown, or Boston College, or BU, or whatever. And without that scholarship, Mr. Tebow, their dream wouldn't come true.
Last week, I attended the laptop presentation to the seniors,
Right.
and that was very impressive to have 125 students meet the requirements of a senior, not missing 3 days of school and meeting the academic requirements. And it was a shame that we weren't able to give a laptop to everyone. So next year, one of our goals is we'll work with that program to see if we could raise enough money to ensure that every graduating senior who meets that requirement will get a laptop.
Mr. Conway.
I want to thank Brenda and John for being here tonight. I think that they do an excellent job. It's an incredible program. And John, that program, the laptops program, is very dear to my heart because I started that program. So I'm very happy to hear those words come out of your mouth on that. That's great. I think that's going to be very, very impressive. It's going to help out a lot of students. And I also want to say, just add one other thing too, that during these difficult economic times, I think corporations and naturally individuals have been hit hard in their portfolios. And the one thing that I thought was very impressive was the way the investment took place with the foundation. And naturally that got hit too, but not as hard as
The average foundation is down 32%. We're only down 21%.
and that's one of the reasons I think that we wanted you to come forward too, because I think we needed to celebrate that.
Thank you.
And congratulations. Thank you.
Mr. Leary, did you have any? No, okay. I just want to close that, John, people invest money in Wall Street. Sometimes those dividends don't pay off. This investment in those students at Lowell High School, the dividends are certainly going to be tremendous.
Oh, this is a tremendous,
And,
tremendous program.
Personally, from our hearts, thank you, Brenda Costello, for helping these kids from Lowell move forward in their education.
Thank you.
God
Good
bless
evening.
you. God bless you. Give them a round of applause. Brenda, would you like to say a few words?
Well, merely, I feel like I have been given the opportunity to empower a lot of the seniors, whether their scholarship may be small in some instances, but I feel that just being on stage on honors night may make a difference in their lives, and
Yes.
and I think it's a wonderful gift. So thank you for the opportunity, for helping, for letting me give those kids
Thank you,
this
Brenda.
gift.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a wonderful program. I am a graduate of Lowell High, and I really am so proud that Lowell High has an endowment, because it doesn't happen in a lot of public high schools. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing, and it will only grow. You know, we've begun.
Yeah.
It's here for the future. So, thank you.
Thank you. And, thank you. And I've learned that John Tebow, John is a very humble person, and the reason we had fireworks this year in our city, we had them on July 5th, we had fireworks, is because of the dedication and leadership of John Tebow and the Greater Lowell Community Foundation and the business community. Over 30 to 40,000 people enjoyed those fireworks, John, and we will never forget it. Thank you. Thank you. Can we accept the minutes of all that's before us all at once? If anyone has a question?
I'm good.
Entertain a motion to approve the four documents, the minutes that's before us on the agenda. So moved by Mr. Conway, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Those minutes have been accepted and placed on file. Permission to enter, Madam Superintendent?
Thank you, Your Honor. Massachusetts Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children for $167,760 to provide behavioral consultation to community-based early childhood programs, 3 FTE behavioral paraprofessionals to work at community sites, and mental health care consultation to community sites and to the Children's Support Service team in the Lowell Public Schools. Funding provided by the Early Childhood Budget, Early Childhood Mental Health Grant. Greenwood Publishing for the amount of $89,700 to provide a K-8 English Language Arts assessment system that matches the needs of Lowell's diverse student population, funded provided by the stimulus package that we are receiving for Title I. All-American Sports Corporation for the amount of $15,050 to provide for the annual reconditioning of sports gears and helmet, 24-hour repair and service of equipment, and the purchase of new equipment and helmets. Funding provided by the School Department Lowell High School Athletics Department budget. Donald Sullivan and Bruce Sullivan for the amount of $18,750 to provide on-site repair and service to a wide range of audio and visual equipment throughout the district. Funding provided by the School Department Local Contracted Services budget. ASAP Fire and Safety Corporation, Inc. for the amount of $27,750 to provide service, maintenance, and replacement to over 500 fire extinguishers and hose cabinet services in 30 locations over the 3 school years. Funding provided by the School Department Budget Operations and Maintenance budget. The Durkins Company, Inc. for the amount of $63,001 to repair and service to a wide range of floor scrubbing machine equipment throughout the district over the next 3 school years. Funding provided by the School Department Operations and Maintenance budget. Aramac Uniform Services for the amount of $83,048 to provide a 3-year contract for cafeteria linen services to all cafeterias in Lowell. Funding provided by the School Department Budget Food Services revolving account. Rich's Transportation Services for the amount of $108,000 to provide a 3-year contract to transport government commodities from warehouses to various schools in Lowell. Funding provided by the School Department Budget Food Services revolving account. Valley Services, Inc. for the amount of $287,478 to provide a 3-year contract to repair and maintain kitchen equipment in all cafeterias in Lowell. Contract price includes $12,000 per year for replacement parts as needed at dealer cost. To provide a 3-year contract to repair and maintenance refrigerators, freezers, and milk coolers in all cafeterias in Lowell. Contract price includes $12,000 per year for replacement parts as needed at dealer cost. Funding provided by the School Department Budget Food Services revolving account. Stevens Children's Homes, Inc. for the amount of $74,202 to provide for the out-of-district tuition costs for 1 student enrolled in receiving services as outlined in their special education IEP. Funding provided by the School Department Special Education Tuition Account. Audio Hearing Center for the amount of $100,610 to provide audiological evaluations, equipment, monitoring, and training to Lowell Public School students over the next 3 school years. Funding provided by the Special Education Department budget. That's it, Your Honor.
Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. Through you to the superintendent, I had a couple of questions. On page 1, the second item for Greenwood Publishing, should that be held until we vote on the subcommittee meetings? Is that part of the subcommittee that we had last week for the stimulus package? So shouldn't we hold that until we approve the motions and then approve this?
This is the assessment package that was, it's my understanding that was discussed last week. Jean Franco is away on professional development tonight in
Right.
Washington, is returning.
So should we
To
vote on the
clarify
minutes?
further, but that is the amount. I believe the reason why it is on here tonight is just so that we are able to begin assessing students in great
Right.
need.
But shouldn't we vote on this after we approve it?
Right.
You know what I mean? We're,
Okay,
yeah,
that's fine.
just to make sure it's in order.
So you want to delay that one for tonight?
Till the end of the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, that's fine.
yeah, okay.
Mr.
And then
Mr. Leary?
well, I just have one other question too.
So can I have a motion to delay this?
Motion.
Sure,
Please, thank you.
you're welcome. And then I had a question on page 2, the Aramark Uniform Services.
Yes.
What does that entail? Like, what cafeterias have linen?
Yeah, that's, it is a 3-year contract, so you're looking at about 30-ish, a year. But that's all of the cloths, the cleaning rags, things like that they use in all the kitchens, the aprons, things of that
Mops
sort.
to aprons.
And
Aprons
it gets sent
towels.
out on a either daily or every other day basis, cleaning as comes back.
All right. Would it be cheaper for us to have some, an in-house service if we bought a few washers and dryers ourselves and?
You'd have to, I mean, it's something we can talk about in the future if you'd like. Personally, I think the investment in capital as well as personnel to operate them and to transport them, because you wouldn't buy that type of a setup for every single school, would actually be more costly.
Okay, so in every school they're using the cloth towels though?
Yeah, whatever the cloths they would use to clean the kitchens or wipe the kitchens, the
All
the
our
washing
linens.
of the pots and things like that, your aprons, that type of thing, yes.
Okay, and then, I don't want to hog this all, but I had another question on Rich's Transportation Service,
Yeah.
the next one down.
We receive government commodities, free, at no cost to the school system. And when we get the notice that there's a particular shipment at a particular warehouse, the only cost associated with us is we have to pay for the transportation to and from. So we have a contract with this vendor for the next 3 years. So again, you're looking at about $3,000 a year. And anytime there's a free shipment of goods that we can use in our schools, we have to pay to have them transported back to us.
What type of goods are we talking about?
These would be foods, cheeses, meats, things like that.
That wouldn't be cheaper to have 2 guys run down picking, are we talking a trailer load or are we talking a van load?
You're talking bulk commodities that would then be distributed to the number of schools in refrigerated trucks. We don't have refrigerated trucks.
All right, just seemed like a lot. Okay,
You all said, John?
yep,
Okay, Jim?
Just real quick back to the RMAC stuff, the uniform services. It's a 3-year contract. We're in the middle of reorganizing the whole food service stuff. What time, quick question, when do you have to have the contract signed by, and how far are we along with that reorganization plan? And I know we don't want to have wash machines in every single school, but it's something that we could be taking a look at, and getting into a 3-year contract eliminates even looking at it, I would imagine.
What page is that on, Jim?
On page 2, Mr. Leahy was actually asking questions about it a second ago.
Oh, okay.
We do have a provision within this contract, the way it was sent out for quote, or actually for bid, that the contract is subject to annual appropriation. So you could choose at the end of year 1 to not exercise that if we determine that it'd be cheaper to do it in-house, so we could come up with some type of a model to do it in-house. We wouldn't have the ability to, for year 2 or 3, just go select a different vendor, because it already has been bid, and this vendor did prove to be the lowest cost for the 3 years. But if we determine for year 2 or 3 it's cheaper
Okay.
to do in-house, that's something we could just cancel the contract.
So it has
going forward.
flexibility then, good, thank you, I appreciate it.
Ms. Martin? No. Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Your Honor. Through you to Mr. Lang. Again, I don't want to belabor this point, but if you look on page 3, Valley Service, Inc., that is $287,000 contract. Again, a 3-year contract regarding maintaining kitchen equipment.
Right.
And again, we might be going to a system that centralizes. I mean, I don't know what our options are as we look at our food service program. Are we locked into this contract? Do we have the opportunity to scale back on it if we decided we didn't need every single kitchen operating to full capacity, that we were going to do centralized food preparation, or do we have that flexibility with this contract?
You do still have, yeah, you absolutely still have flexibility. Again, this is another contract that would be subject to annual appropriation. But your main issue on this one is every single one of our schools is going to require refrigeration. The freezers, the coolers, things of that. But even if we were to go to some centralized services as far as cooking and preparing, you're still going to need the ovens in every school to be working, to be able to cook the foods, to heat the foods. This particular contract, again, probably closer to $90,000 or $95,000 a year. $24,000 of that amount is just for parts if something were to break, or we want to include. So you're looking at about $50,000 to $55,000 to cover every single kitchen in our school system and all of the equipment as far as your ovens, your warmers, refrigerator units. So it's substantial equipment. So this is something that I absolutely see us needing regardless of changes we may make. This just keeps our equipment functioning.
And if I could just follow up with one other question. Remind me, how much did we cut from the food service line item? Because we did
You did
lock ourselves into finding some savings there.
It was approximately 105,000, maybe 107,000, somewhere around there.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
I just want to touch on the linen issue. You have major hotels, banquet facilities, restaurants, and so forth. It's more cost-effective for them to have a contract with a linen company to bring in fresh linen every day. It would be, wouldn't be cost-effective if they had to wash and prepare the linen. And I can just see 3,500 students at Lowell High School, the linen they must go through. And you would be creating a full-time job maybe for 2 people. And you have to put that into the equation, how much it's going to cost you. So what the committee wants to do is delay the Greenwood Publishing until we bring in a subcommittee report? Okay, we'll delay that $89,700 and bring that up further in the meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval on the other items.
Move approval with the exception of Greenwood Publishing.
Right.
Move approval by Jackie Doherty, seconded by Regina Fattacani. Roll call.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Ms. Fattacante?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Moving on with the agenda, memorials by committee as a whole. Julia C. Fiera, son of Lena Fiera, clerk, student support office at Lowell High School, and Vaughn Marie Torres, a student at Lowell High School. May we stand for a moment of silence in darkened chambers. May they rest in peace. Anything under unfinished business? No unfinished business? Public participation? If none, we're going to move right into the motions. A motion by John Leahy. Ask the superintendent to provide a report from Brian Curley on the feasibility of bringing back the supervisor of custodian position with the purpose of supervising and special projects of itemizing the surplus and selling to bring in additional revenue to the school department.
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Seconded by Connie Martin on the motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. I know at this point in the game, we don't want to start picking and choosing who we bring back. But when I was over visiting the Rogers School, I noticed in the basement, as we prepare that building for the administration, there's quite a lot of surplus down there, chairs, desks, industrial arts equipment, saws, planers, a lot of hand tools. So the purpose of this, and I've thought through it, you know, could we assign someone else to do it? And that would be up to the administration, but I think everybody's got so much on their plate right now that if we brought somebody back like that position, that person is is familiar with the schools. They can itemize, I don't know the whole, how you actually do it, but I guess you have to itemize all these different items that we have left over. And then they have to be put in some sort of a format that they can go out to bid. And where that goes, I don't know. Mr. Lang would know that. But we've got to have thousands of dollars just at the Rogers School. So I would expect that every school would be itemized, either the basement, the attic, wherever. Chairs, desks, anything, blackboards, tools, equipment, anything we're not using that we're not going to use, be itemized and moved ahead accordingly so that the surplus can be sold, the revenues can come back to the school department, and we could devise, we could come up with whatever way we want to, but I would think it could fund this position and bring money back. So, and I don't think it would be a, it's going to be quite a feat to itemize all this and get it ready to surplus. So I think it would take a good portion of the year. That's why I would like to dedicate one person to do it, and in the same time, they could have that position back, and they could do the supervising at night as they were. So that's what my motion's about. Thank you.
On the motion, Dave?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to applaud John Leahy in this motion. It's as we have certainly have seen in the last few months, the difficulties that we have in trying to meet our financial budget. And in this particular case here, it certainly shows some creativity. And I think there's obviously going to be a lot of work to it and some kinks to be worked out, but I think that I think it could make sense, and I certainly would support this motion. Thank you.
Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm just looking for some clarification through you to Mr. Lang. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what the plans are regarding, first of all, the office equipment that we currently have at central administration. Is that going to be moved to Rogers? Do we own that? Are we purchasing new equipment? And secondly, what is the expectation regarding these materials that are currently at the Rogers? Are we going to have a huge amount of surplus? And do we have surplus supplies anywhere else in this system? Those are just for clarification on the motion. Thank you.
Yeah, with regard to the, as we work towards setting up the Rogers School with furnishing the equipment, all of the desks or cubicles and filing cabinets, things of that sort, at central office now will just be relocated, probably configured differently at the Rogers School, but those are items that we own, so they'll all be coming over with us. To date, we've actually moved the Literacy Center from Palmer Street over to the Rogers School, and they've taken up their space and have started to assemble their classrooms for the fall in the basement area. And again, it was all of their equipment and furnishings from their existing location have just been moved to the Rogers School. The Rogers and one or two of the other bigger middle schools, the older schools, I think the Bartlett's one and the Daly might be another, are just big schools that were built and have basements. And they've been schools that we've been storing as like our home ec program or our wood shop program has kind of gone out of the focus in the middle schools. That equipment has just been relocated to some of those buildings where there is storage, and we have it accumulating at this point. I don't know, this could probably go to an appropriate subcommittee and just talk about the viability of bringing back those programs in the near future, what the lifespan on that equipment would be, whether if it was in another 3 to 5 years, if it would even be, salvageable at that point, or if you'd be needing to start new, even just technology-wise. But we'd have to start with actually just doing an inventory of all of that equipment, itemizing it, categorizing it, and then if the school committee were to deem that surplus, we could put it out to bid, and you would end up awarding a bid either in groupings of equipment or individual by line item. That's something, again, we could talk about in the subcommittee, and you would ultimately award your bid and sell your merchandise to the highest bidder. And then he would have to work with the city to set up the appropriate account to actually take those funds in, and then have them be reallocated to the school department, school committee, so that you could then appropriate them wherever you wanted to in the budget. But that would be the process.
Anyone else? Mr. Leary?
Thank you. I'm going to support it at this point because the way the language is written as to the feasibility, because there's a lot of questions, obviously, that my colleagues have outlined, and Mr. Leahy had pointed out, obviously, some creative thinking in terms of surplus equipment that we may or may not have. But you actually pointed out, Mr. Lang, some additional stuff that we need to take a look at. Are we going to utilize this equipment? And I guess one of the things that if we did bring the position on, the person would even see if they're even workable, safe, what have you, up to date, up to standard, or of any use. I guess some of the questions we need to look at in part of this report is, what exactly is it titled actually supervisor of custodians, or is it a special project job for the year? Those types of questions would be helpful when you come in through that report. What would the salary scale be? Recommended would be the old salary of the supervisor custodians. I do see value because there is long-term a lot of questions that need to be asked, and we do have a lot of desks, machinery that is stored throughout a variety of locations that either we, other than being stored, either we throw it out if it's dangerous, we sell it, like you said, as surplus and get some revenue from it, or we're going to utilize it. So this might be a longer project than I think anyone had initially envisioned, one that may have a lot of value. However, either way you look at it, we have to do something with this equipment, and just throwing it out might not be the most advantageous thing for the system. Thank you.
Anyone else like to? Go. Ms. Martin?
Could I just, and I would defer to my colleague, Mr. Leahy, but could we perhaps refer this to maybe the facilities subcommittee, where Mr. Curley can bring his recommendations and then make the final determination to bring it forward for the full
We
committee?
could. I'm the chair of
I thought of that.
Okay, well, I might be biased, but if you think I can be fair, okay.
This
All
will
right, that'd be fine.
Refer to the
is she-
facility subcommittee.
So she's going to amend his motion to refer to the facilities subcommittee. Is there a second on that?
Second by Mr. Leary.
Thank you.
I just have a comment. Jay, this individual who was a supervisor, that individual still working in the system?
He is, yes.
And how much of a savings was derived from the motion from supervisor to custodian? You know,
I'm sorry, I'm not...
how much of a savings? There had to be a savings.
Oh,
What was
yeah, I believe it was in the vicinity of 60,000 was the salary.
60,000.
Correct.
The savings, what is
Well,
the?
see, what ended up happening is the supervisor custodians went back to being a senior custodian, and then the least senior custodian went back to being a junior custodian, and the least senior junior custodian ended up being laid off. So the savings is really difference between what you were paying the supervisor custodians, say 60,000, and that least senior junior, which is probably say 40,000.
Okay.
So your total savings was about 20,000.
Okay, the only reason I brought that up is, and I certainly appreciate you bringing this forward, John, but does Brian Curley have an assistant, Jay? No.
This was his assistant.
You know, we went through the budget, we had to make some cuts. I didn't like to make them, and no one else did. But I just don't want to see a domino effect going back into the budget and creating, let's bring this person back and that person back, and it's going to catch up to us. And I would certainly support it going to the facilities subcommittee, and it will eventually come back for a vote. And I just feel in the same lines as Mr. Leary that I'm going to take a long, hard look at this, because in order to save that much money going through desks and chairs and furniture, you'd have to come up with a lot of money to sell it and so forth in order to gain back that money. So it's something I'm going to take a look at.
No, you're on, and I understand that, and I thought about this, but who better than someone like a person that was in that position before, that knows the buildings in and out and is involved with all the buildings to do this special project. And I mean, after seeing what happened at the Butler School, where we stored everything for years, and then eventually the leaks in the roofs and we couldn't do anything with it. So
I went in that school. It
sure.
was
So
a
now we
disgrace.
can get, hopefully surplus all this and bring in some revenue, and that's the intent of it. And I just thought that position would be the best place to put this, so that that person in that position could oversee, as they did, but also have this special project on their plate, which would bring revenue in for the next school year, so, thank you.
Ms. Fattacani?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would agree with Mr. Leahy. What happened at the Butler School was a disgrace. I'll agree with you also. So I think that that's one of the things that we're trying to avoid. But in all honesty, Your Honor, you can send me down into the basement, and I can see a lot of machinery, and I'm not going to know what all of it is, and I'm not going to know what it's all worth. So I think when we are looking at having someone do that, we're looking at having somebody who has a specific competency in being able to determine, this is a lathe, this is X, Y, Z, and this is A, B, C, and this is how much it's worth on the open market for us. I think that that's where this person's talent comes into play here. We could hire a $15 an hour clerk who could go down and say, oh yeah, there's 10 machines in the basement. I don't know what they are. So I think that we're also looking at somebody who has a certain level of competency to determine the worth of these items and the description of the items in order to assist us. I mean, we don't want what happened to the Butler to happen to us. And if we have buildings full of desks and chairs and machinery that we're not using, I think it really behooves us to unload that stuff for a certain amount of money before it goes to waste, before it's not usable.
What happened at the Butler School was all the new schools that were built
Right,
and
I know.
replaced, all that excess furniture
Absolutely.
was put into the Butler School.
Right.
And it deteriorated
It's terrible.
rapidly. So, but what my point is, speaking on a business way of thinking, is how much money could you make and how long would this job last and so forth. But let the report come back, we'll take a look at it, and I just wouldn't want to see every week somebody coming in with, and let's bring this employee back, because you're going to face the 8 ball sooner or later. So, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Motion as amended. That's it, okay.
Yes.
As amended.
Right.
Passes.
Okay.
Okay.
Next motion by John Leahy, requests that the superintendent provide the committee with any updates on the union concessions for the upcoming school year, seconded by Mr.
Second.
Leary.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. If we could just have an update at the next meeting on any concessions, any conversations, anything, what for. If we could also find out what's happening with the cafeteria, I don't know what, if you reorg, that would be helpful. And it's my understanding that maybe nothing's come in and everybody's just looking towards the new year. Just so we're all aware what's going on, what's happening. If it is a situation where nothing's going to happen from last school year and everybody's looking to the new school year, 2010, then let's get the negotiations going and start talking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or debate on this particular motion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. And John, you brought out a good point. Madam Superintendent and the committee, could we have a committee meeting pertaining to the cafeterias and have the food director at the meeting and get some insight on what the food director plans on doing? Because I haven't never met this person. So I'd like to see what this food director plans on doing with the reorganization. I can't boil an egg, but I want to know what this food director can do, so. Okay, so, moving on with the motion by James Leary, request the superintendent provide the school committee with recommendations and the associated costs required in order to bring each school's website up to date and in line with similar contents as compared to Lowell High School and the Washington Elementary School webpage. Seconded by Regina Fattacani. On the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I know that being finance is being tight, and the Lowell High School folks have more support, being the size and the type of environment that it is. The Washington Elementary School has an outstanding website in place for better part of all of last year, if not a little bit longer. It's an outstanding place for the parents to go to find out exactly about upcoming events. I know we do send out an enormous amount of paper to folks, and not everybody's online. The real pet peeve that I have is a lot of folks, like, I see my sister over the summer vacation more than I want to and more than she wants to see me. She lives in Connecticut. They can email to teachers back and forth through that website. Teachers are online. There's different types of levels where websites for each elementary school in their school district. I don't know if we're going to get to that point, at least from the initial stages, but it is something where we should be striving to get. And again, I'm cognizant that not everybody has access to a computer. But as we go forward, more people are becoming that way, and it is another useful tool for communication other than phone calls waiting for return messages. I know the city councilors are on the email. We're on the email now as well. It's another benefit, and just anything we can do to improve it. I know the Washington Elementary School utilized, I think, I'm going to get the numbers wrong, $3 to $4 grand to update their website yearly. It might be an off amount of money. But just to get that information, so as we look forward to become better resources for our parents, I think it'd be a good thing. Thank you.
Madam Superintendent?
Thank you for the motion. Just so the committee is aware, there are stimulus monies available for technology. We have applied for 2 stimulus grants from the state that will help us to address some of our technology concerns and issues. However, presently, when you look across our system at all of our schools, last summer we sat with the technology team actually here from City Hall because they had people that we needed to tap because the school department doesn't have all the resources because we can't afford it. And they really helped us design a website page that would at least be current at every school. What happens, because we don't have the funds to fund a website that is as nice as perhaps Lowell High or even the Washington, who may take some of their monies from other areas to fund this particular web page, is that schools that have tech-savvy parents or a tech-savvy teacher, that's when you see, because we don't specifically hire somebody to manage all of these websites, which is very time-consuming to do. So what happens is that you might have a great website at your school, but when that child graduates grade 4 and the parent goes to the middle school with the child, then the website becomes out of date. So what we did as a safeguard, because it's very frustrating to go to a website and for it to be out of date, is we have a template in place for all our schools that at least we know is current and that we can afford. Much beyond what you see, we really are dependent upon expertise from our community, from our parent organization, or in some cases, a staff member who's really tech savvy. So we have had, and will continue to have, conversations about how we can bring more technology into the system. As recently as yesterday, I talked to the person in charge of the technology grants at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to make sure that we weren't missing any grants, that we have applied for the 2. There's another one coming out in the next few weeks that will also help with infrastructure.
And thank you very much. The intent of the motion wasn't to say you weren't doing anything, I guess to make it more formal in that, at least from one standpoint, I think it is something we put on as a priority. More folks are becoming web-based. It's something that I think in the next 5 to 10 years, there won't be paper. We'll need to have this in place, and it is a useful tool. But I do appreciate the fact that you are looking at it and working with other avenues to make it achievable. And I guess some type of report in the next few months as to what the cost would be, because if there is a cost associated per school, maybe that is a priority for it, maybe it's not, but we can make that decision going down the road. Thank you.
Madam Superintendent?
I mean, it definitely is a priority for us, and I appreciate the motion because it does focus us on the need. And just as we have gone through 6 years of cuts, as you can appreciate, and I know you do, there is not a lot of money for technology. And what happens is, it's not only when you purchase, and last year we purchased a large amount of Apple computers because we got an Apple computer settlement grant out of a lawsuit that we were part of, so that we received over $1 $1 million, I believe, in monies for that. But what happens is when you don't have money in your operating budget to bring up to date your equipment, you buy it. And much of the equipment in our schools now was bought 5 years ago or more and is old and is not up to date. So you have just the replacement costs that, one, we can't afford, and two, the personnel. So you may have classrooms full of computers, but if you don't have a computer teacher who's techie savvy to go in there and fix the equipment, it's another problem for us. So it's a huge issue. I think when we bring this back, it won't be just, I think we should do a more complete technology report in general, not just the web page, but we do have other issues that we are looking at, from infrastructure to web-based issues. So we'll bring back a full report.
That's great, and I think maybe the technology subcommittee would make a lot of sense. But just also, $1 million last year in Apple computers, half of that money was from the suit. The other half was from this committee actually scraping funds together to go out and buy that technology. So we're all pretty cognizant of that, and I thank you for your help with it. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? If none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. We are now entering into the agenda with subcommittees. Joint Safety and Discipline Subcommittee report and approval of the minutes of May 26, 2009. Regina Infatacanti, Chair of Safety. David Conway, Chair of Discipline. This report was delayed from the meeting of June 17th. Who would like to, Ms.
Thank you, Your
Fatacanti?
Honor. Subcommittee meeting was called at 6:08 p.m. Members present were Jackie Doherty and Connie Martin. Discipline committee members present were Dave Conway, who's the chairperson, school department personnel, the superintendent of schools, Chris Scott, and Ann Murphy, the assistant superintendent. This is a report from Assistant Superintendent Ann Murphy. The subcommittee met to discuss some recent issues, Your Honor, regarding policies that were not followed at the Bartlett School. Assistant Superintendent Murphy assessed the school's response to a report of a weapon in the building and highlighted the school's responses that did not follow our current school department guidelines. Also, Assistant Superintendent Murphy reviewed the inadequacies of the school's response with the building principal to ensure complete understanding of the district guidelines. And, Your Honor, Superintendent Scott met with the principal, addressed issues of noncompliance with her through the evaluation process. We will be, according to the superintendent, we will be readdressing with all of our principals, all of our guidelines, all of our safety measures, Your Honor, in collaboration with the Lowell Police Department. A motion was placed by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Doherty, to accept the report as report of progress 3-0. Thank you, Your Honor.
Accept the report as report of progress. So moved by Mr. Conway, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That report has been accepted and placed on file. The next report is the Transportation Subcommittee, approval of the minutes of meeting June 17, 2009. Regina Infatacanti, Chairman.
Your Honor, we already gave the report. What we just need to do is approve the minutes. So
moved by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes have been accepted and placed on file. Special Education Subcommittee approval of the minutes of meeting of June 17, 2009. Jackie Doherty, Chairperson.
Thank you, Your Honor. We also already reviewed the minutes of this meeting at our last meeting, so we just need to approve the written document recording the minutes.
approval, Your Honor.
Should we take a roll call on this? Because I understand that we're transferring bus monitors to, no? Nothing to do
No,
with?
this was the
Did that in the
motion.
budget.
What's that?
We did that in our budget, Your Honor.
Okay.
This meeting was about establishing a position of a speech-language assistant
Okay.
to work with our pathologists when we couldn't find pathologists. And
Okay.
we did vote on a roll call at our meeting on June 17th. So this is just the written minutes of that
Okay.
meeting.
Motion to approve those minutes by Mr. Conway, seconded by Ms. Martin. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Those minutes have been accepted and placed on file. The Lowell High School Subcommittee report and approval of the minutes of June 23, 2009. Jackie Doherty, Chairperson.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Lowell High Subcommittee did meet on June 23rd at 7 p.m. Present were myself and other subcommittee members, Regina Fatacanti and Dave Conway, as well as Central Office Administrators, Dr. Scott and Deputy Superintendent Jean Franco, Headmaster Bill Samaras, Dr. Wendy Jack, Dr. Roxanne Howe, and Steve Jarvis, who's the Foreign Languages Department Chair. We had 3 items on the agenda. The first was some changes to the student handbook. I believe everybody has a copy of those
Yes.
changes, and really the intent with that was to clarify some language in the handbook regarding cell phone use, student behavior, some technology issues with texting and things like that. So we did, I don't know if we should just go through it all, and then, because we would need a vote on that. Do you want me to just go through all the items?
If you
on-
like, sure.
I think that would be quicker. Okay, so we approved some changes to the handbook with some discussion. That would go before the whole committee. And then the second item was regarding the 25 teaching positions that were cut from the high school, and how the high school plans to deal with that, the impact on that in terms of class sizes. And we did have a lengthy discussion about that, because we are looking at some classes that are going to be really increased quite a bit in size. And one of the issues that came up that would need further discussion is to look at and discuss with our teachers' union specifically the full-time equivalent concept, that right now, as we look at getting to a more equitable class size with our K-8 classrooms, there is a severe trade-off in terms of the number and variety of courses we can offer, and how that relates to student load that a teacher will have. In other words, if you're teaching Latin 4, you're not going to have as many students. But if we want to keep offering Latin 4, we need to come up with some creative ways of doing that. And one of those would be to really take a look at that full-time equivalent requirement that we have with our unions, to get into some discussions with them about that. So the general consensus, we're going to continue to look at this issue. You know, a reduction of 25 teachers is going to have a severe impact at the high school, and the high school subcommittee wants to stay on top of that. The third issue that came up is also relevant to this budget cuts that we just made at the high school, and that is regarding the distribution of student support coordinator responsibilities. We eliminated that position. We also made a clerical elimination in that department, and the general feeling was the subcommittee wanted a plan from the high school, how they were going to distribute the responsibilities of that position now that it's been eliminated. And although it's not perfect, you know, there are going to be a lot more people carrying more workload, and you know, more potential of students falling through the cracks. They do have a plan in place, and they did present us with that. So the meeting adjourned at 8:35, and I guess, other than just accepting the report as a whole, I think the most important thing is that the committee accepts the recommended changes to the student handbook.
That's going to be a separate motion. That's going to be a separate motion.
That would be a separate motion, okay. So I would, to accept the student handbook.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion to accept the student handbook.
Seconded by Ms. Martin. All in favor to accept
Oh, it
this?
has to be a roll call, it really
What's
does.
that?
Roll call, Your
Has to be
Honor.
a roll
Roll
call.
call. Do what you're told. Roll call.
Miss Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Miss Doherty?
Yes.
Miss Fattacante?
Yes?
Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Larry?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. Before we approve the full report, I did just have a quick question. So the discussion around the teaching position cuts and impact, am I right that we haven't determined those 4, like TBA, to be named later, positions? So, I'm sorry, could you tell me which those are then? I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Was this the 2?
Yes, we
Math.
had, our last move was to give the high school the authority to choose 4 teachers. And I'm not sure if it's here, but I believe that...
On the front page.
It's on the front page. It was, where are you seeing it on the front page?
2 math, 1 English, 1 ELL.
Okay.
And that
2
sheet.
math, 1 English, and 1 ELL.
Any others? John, did you have a question?
Sure, I had a question. Through you to the chair. Let's see. I was looking through the report, and I just want to make sure, I guess, I know that you're, very thorough with the high school, and after looking at the positions that were eliminated on the back sheet, I just saw a couple that kind of stuck out, like SAT prep, creative writing elective, voices in literature, and possibilities. I just hope you were satisfied that they kept electives that had more meaning than these, I guess. I mean, when you see creative writing as an elective being dropped, you were happy that they had something substantially better to keep?
I have to tell you, I was not happy about anything having to do with this report. These cuts are painful. My understanding is we're not completely eliminating creative writing, that they have dropped some sections of some courses. And I think the discussion, as I said, went back to the issue of how do we maintain choices for our students, giving students a chance. I mean, one of the math cuts, what was the position we left? Architectural design or something? I mean, really painful to think about losing that elective for students who that might be their hook. That might be what gets them excited about coming to school. So ultimately, the decision was we're going to continue to go forward, look very carefully at these decisions as we get more real numbers. How many students are going to pass summer school? That's going to impact the algebra size in the fall, the size of, these sorts of things. And also look toward the leadership from the superintendent to work with our unions to come up with something that maybe we can have part-time teachers who come in and teach architectural design or so it's definitely not something I personally could tell you I was happy about, but I think we're moving forward as best we can, given the fiscal constraints that we're facing.
Okay. Madam Superintendent?
Also, Mr. Leahy, I think just to clarify the process again, the headmaster and Wendy Jack both worked with the department chairs, and they understood the class size issue. To address Mrs. Doherty's point, I have put it on the table that going forward, we do have to look at an FTE. If we were able to have an FTE that wasn't 1.0, but was 0.5 or 0.2 or 0.4, which other school districts do, then we will be able to keep these classes that we presently have that don't have full caseloads. We still, to be clear, have many classes at the high school this year that will not approach 25, and we have many that'll be over 30 as we do this year, very similar to this year. So, a lot of people in the trenches, so to speak, worked on, to Mrs. Doherty's point, on recommendation is a hard way to put it, because nobody wanted to make any of those cuts, but they definitely weren't made in the ivory tower.
Okay, and can I finish up? I just had a
Mr.
couple of
Levy?
quick things. Can I just finish a couple of
I'm
things?
sorry.
No, thank you. You prompted one other question. Did we ever have a policy for the high school that said we didn't want to go over a certain number? Or that was never made policy? Okay. Okay.
A certain number of what, John? Students?
Students in a classroom. I thought a few years ago we had talked about we wanted to be notified.
Yeah, we did talk about it that night.
All right. And my last question was just on the, through you to the chair, about the distribution of coordinator responsibilities. I didn't see anything really in the chart for discipline. I know that the housemasters do a lot of discipline. Obviously this chart was well thought out also with the distribution of responsibilities.
Again, I'm just going to go my sense of what was discussed at the meeting. The discipline piece is not seen as the primary responsibility of this position that we've eliminated. That does fall more on the housemasters. The thinking behind the distribution of this person's job was, one that comes to mind is Dr. Howe, who gets very involved with attendance, and that, you know, they looked at the job responsibilities of the remaining staff, leadership at the high school, and what made the most sense for adding more responsibilities that were being currently, or in the last year, covered by the Director of Student Services position that's now been eliminated. So discipline was not one that was a major responsibility of that position, based on my understanding. If anybody else has more information.
Well, how, the
thoughts.
guidance services falls under housemaster, what does that mean?
I'm sorry?
Is that
say that-
gonna be new? So all these bullets mean that these
Right.
are new?
Instead of having, the old way, before we eliminated this position, is the guidance staff reported to, if I could just use the person's name, Miss Lynch, the person whose position was eliminated. The guidance staff reported to that position, and that position was responsible for bringing the whole guidance professionalism up to speed and actual meeting with students. Guidance councils had to meet with every student that was on their caseload. Now that we don't have that management person there, guidance will now refer, and again, there was a logical reason behind it. Guidance will refer, they will report to their housemaster. So again, we have that cluster approach. You have whatever number of students, if there are 700 students in your house, and you've got 3 guidance counselors or 4 guidance counselors, they all working as a team for those students, and they report to the housemaster. So there was a logical thinking about, okay, if Mrs. Lynch isn't going to be here to do this, who now is going to have responsibility for managing those guidance counselors? So that was the thinking behind that. And it did make sense to me. But again, I think it's putting a lot more on people, just spreading it a little thinner. And that's a concern.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Leary, then Mr. Conway.
And I think Mr. Conway could probably testify to this, that really that the guidance counselors are already working with the housemasters in conjunction in most all areas anyway. So it's kind of in a natural alignment now. There's actual direct alignment as opposed to some, maybe a dotted line. It's a direct function. And Mr. Conway can probably speak to that more than I can. The other issue that I think all of us were talking about at that meeting was the concern of some of the class sizes. And Mr. Leahy brought up a great point. Why did we discuss having a cap? And I think the committee and the members that were there, the subcommittee and the members that were there, were looking at really that the department head, the guidance counselor, and the teacher need to be in line when we do add people to a particular class, and that it needs to be a strong management function to ensure that the teacher in a particular class, be it Algebra 1 or, French 1 or what have you, is up to standard and can be able to do that, and then adding individuals is not adding more harm. And I think what we said and we had the foreign language department head there, Steve Jarvis, was there. Steve said, yeah, it's really a management function. We're having dialogue directly with our guidance counselors and doing that. It's not saying that it's easy, but it's saying that instead of eliminating that dialogue and having that flexibility removed from our management team at the high school, we're going to allow them to do that. And I think every committee member, especially in the math area where we were concerned with the class sizes, I think everybody spoke up and was, we're concerned that too many math teachers were cut because sizes could be a lot larger than anybody wanted them to be. In fact, that's across the board. But I think the focus is management, looking at it again after the September-October year when we have enrollments. There will be adjustments in October because some folks will take a class in mathematics that they're not quite able to take. We'll have to drop down to a lower mathematics. So it's something that we're going to need to look at, and as we go into next year, we need to prepare ourselves accordingly. Thank you.
Mr. Conway?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify that the way it's set up at the high school, the housemaster is responsible and has always been responsible for the evaluation, at least in recent times, the evaluation of the guidance counselor. The guidance counselor is part of the house team, and it has been for quite a while. So that, again, just to clarify that responsibility was already in the housemaster's office to start with. Thank you.
Okay. I think Ms. Doherty put it very clear. We're moving forward the best way we can. And all these cuts have a domino effect, and it does affect everyone in the school system. And we just have to pull up the bootstraps and do the best we can, as you said. So accept the report as report of progress by Ms. Fatacanti, seconded by Mr. Leary. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those minutes have been accepted and placed on file. The next subcommittee report is the Joint Safety and Discipline Subcommittee report and approval of the minutes of July 7, 2009. Regina M. Patacanti, chairperson. Safety, David Conway, chairperson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the school committee present, Safety Subcommittee with Jackie Doherty and Connie Martin, and the Discipline Subcommittee, Mr. Conway is the chairperson, and John Leahy, and also joining us was Jim Leary from the school committee. Your Honor, what was discussed at this meeting was the revision of the K-8 parent and student handbook. Assistant Superintendent Ann Murphy took the two handbooks that we had and redesigned them so that they were more reflective of the handbook that we had at the high school. Some extremely important additions were made to those handbooks. Safety drill procedures, Your Honor, harassment and bullying language, physical restraint language, acceptable use policy, expansion of the school health language, and something very important, Your Honor, was off-campus behavior relative to cell phone use, texting, and sending photos, which creates any kind of risk or disruption to the safety of our children. It's so easy, Your Honor, to send a text message or to send a photo of a student, post something on MySpace. Parents say, oh, it happened out of school, not my responsibility. Well, when it concerns the safety of another student, Your Honor, it is the responsibility, okay? Copies will be presented to every student enrolled in K through 8. In subsequent years, the handbook will be given to all students who are new to the district. A motion by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Doherty, to recommend to the committee as a whole to approve the revised K-8 parent-student handbook. 4-0, was accepted, Your Honor.
Accept the reporter's report of
No,
progress.
that has to be roll call too, because it's a, this
Roll
book
call,
goes
Your
home.
Honor.
It goes home to parents. Oops.
Roll call.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Fadden, who seconded? I'm sorry.
I don't
Okay,
know.
Doherty.
Move for approval by Ms.
Mr.
Patacanti,
Leary.
second by Ms. Martin.
Okay.
Roll call.
This is to approve the changes in the K-8 student handbook. Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Ms. Doherty,
Yes.
Ms. Fattacante.
Yes.
Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. The Finance Subcommittee report, James Leary, Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. It was a good meeting. I guess there's three motions, and I'll take them at the very end. The school committee cut $7,708,056 through our budget deliberations. In layman's terms, it's very somewhat convoluted. When we did our budget, we budgeted 30% for our circuit breaker special education funding, and the bright spot in all the finances, that actually came in at 40%, 10% more than we actually budgeted. However, the net deduction after our cuts equaled $557,515. So thus, the school committee had a deficit of over $500,000, and we're required to make that up and balance our budget. Mr. Lang provided explanation in the first motion regarding that his recommendations were to take the monies out of our suspense account, equaling $231,387, and reduce a line item within the utilities, electricity specifically, by $326,128 to balance the FY10 budget. Obviously, the utility account is a risk, but instead of making layoffs at this point in time, we want to be more thoroughly managing our budget going forward this year and looking to be creative. I could use a lot of other buzzwords, but the bottom line is we're going to be working very aggressively to not have to lay anybody off because of the 210 budget. It is going to be a challenge, however. So I make the form of a motion to make those transfers. Need a second.
Motion to approve by Mr. Leary, second by Mr. Leahy. I think we should take a roll call vote on this.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Mr. Conway.
Yes.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
Ms. Fattacante.
Yes.
Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
And the last subcommittee report of the evening.
Well, we got two more motions, Mayor, real quick. I'll go through them.
Excuse me?
We have two more motions
Oh,
for
I'm
that subcommittee.
sorry.
I'm sorry. Motion by John Leahy, second by James Leary, to encumber all remaining FY09 personnel and non-personnel funds at fiscal year end for the purpose of funding the financial 2010 Lowell Public Schools unemployment claims. This is a form of a motion. To just a quick explanation, we normally budget $400,000 for unemployment. What we're anticipating at this point in time is that our unemployment costs could exceed, conservative numbers will be around $1 million. So we're $600,000, we're anticipating we're $600,000 short from that. We will have some monies left over after the end of the year. We're not fully sure what amount that will actually be at this point in time. We are probably going to know, Mr. Lang could give a better explanation in terms of timeframes, but we're talking probably at the end of August when we'll finally know what we have left over at the end of the year. But to begin the process, at least to encumber those funds, we begin to reserve that balance, I think it's a wise move as opposed to making cuts under other line items. In addition, I guess Mr. Lang will know the final unemployment cost probably after Labor Day in September, so we'll have a final number actually, instead of estimating it at $1 million, what that actual cost will be. So I make that in form of a motion.
Mr. Leary, is that all the motions combined?
No, there's one more right after that, too.
Why don't you give that other motion?
Oh, sure.
debate
And
the roll
then,
call?
sure, that's a good idea. And the second motion really is for Mr. Leahy and myself, again, to encumber $511,203 that's currently held, and for the salary adjustments for the custodians, to move the funds into the Lowell School Committee suspense account. And that motion was really made to ensure that if we did come under the unemployment funds, we would actually have money that we could rely upon at that point in time. Thank you.
So moved by Mr. Leary, seconded by Ms. Fattacanti. Any discussion, debate on the issues? Roll call on the entire report.
Miss Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Miss Doherty?
Yes.
Miss Fattacante?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
And the final subcommittee of the evening, Curriculum and Instruction Subcommittee report and approval of the minutes of July 9, 2009. Connie Martin, chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Attending the meeting from the school committee were myself, Mr. Leary, and Mr. Leahy. From central office, that's in attendance, were Superintendent Dr. Chris Scott, Deputy Superintendent Franco, our Coordinator for School Improvement and Accountability, James Neary, and our Title I Director for the district, Patty Gajeka. We did have a number of topics that we discussed. First was the district plan for school intervention review, a report from the Department of Early and Secondary Education that had come through. We have the superintendent presented us with kind of a bit of the step-by-step process that had happened with this. When the initial report had come back, there were concerns that it really did not, especially in terms of recommendations that had been made as part of this report, which did focus on the district itself and focused on school interventions, improvements, that concerns had been raised to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and the report really had been revised, as we understand it, so that the recommendations really more clearly reflected what's actually going on in our district. I think in many cases, and this is kind of anecdotal, but in many cases, the recommendations they were making were things that our district is already doing, has been already doing, and has already been seeing success from. So a recommendation to begin doing them seemed a little inaccurate. We do not have the actual report at this point. ESC will be releasing it. We are optimistic that it will really show very clearly the work that has been done in our district around, in terms of intervention and improvement. So we will be looking forward to that, receiving that report soon. The school improvement funding update. This is in regards to, again, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and their school improvement efforts that are certainly ongoing throughout the Commonwealth. And I think many people who are watching, certainly members of our school community, know that there have been discussions as they are determining how they will choose or select the level 4 schools throughout the Commonwealth. I have gotten no new information about that process So we're really kind of in a holding pattern right now, but it really, level 4 schools, the Commonwealth priority schools are schools that have not made appropriate improvement in their MCAS scores over a several-year period, and there is, again, nothing specific has been shared with the public at this point, but the process is such that it could be a matter of these specific Commonwealth priority schools falling under different jurisdictions, or there's a lot of discussion about what it will really mean to be named that, and what it will mean in terms of governance, in terms of management. There is, the concept is that those schools could be eligible for additional funding as part of that restructuring, but again, there are very real concerns about how these schools, if they are given this designation, how they will be run, and who will be responsible for them. So that is something that we are looking, hopefully in the near future. I don't have a timeline. Superintendent doesn't either. So we're waiting for ESD to really share that with us as we move forward. Our next topic of discussion was the stimulus funding and our plans for that. As many people may remember, during our budget process, we were able to allocate about 50% of stimulus funds towards our traditional budget costs, but 50% of that was also very clearly directed at specific goals that we needed to take, or specific actions we needed to take, I should say. The Title I, the total amount for that was almost $1.8 million. We were able to use some of it in terms of recovery for some of the locally funded math resource teachers and coaches. And then in terms of investments moving forward, we were able to use some of that funding to invest in some professional development activities, both in terms of the activities themselves as well as the substitute teachers that are necessary for that. And also for a position which will be funded strictly by the stimulus funds for 4 middle school reading tutors and a literacy language specialist who will be supporting our district-wide K-12 English language arts and language coordinator. Included in this Title I funding also is almost $44,000 investment in our middle school libraries to ensure that we have a range of reading materials for our middle schoolers, part of our overarching adolescent literacy efforts that have been ongoing in the district for several years. And also the item that, and please, if you can just confirm this for me, Madam Superintendent, this Fountainist Pinnell assessment, that is the one that was referred to earlier in our...
That's my understanding.
Okay, excellent. So maybe at the conclusion of the report, we can take that vote then, that we had pushed back. Also, the IDEA stimulus funds, also, we were able to recover some of for public school programs at the LeBlanc and the Lower Lee, also in terms of some additional investments. These were specifically directed towards special education needs within our district. So there are a number of positions around speech therapy, some of the life skills classes, and expanding some of our partnerships in the community, specifically with local mental health organizations for our students, and professional development investment as well. So that was our stimulus funding. And the final part of our report was we were updated by Deputy Superintendent Franco on the process as it stands now for merging within the district our English language department, English language learner department, and our literacy, our traditional literacy department. I think I'm mixing those up, but basically it's taking the English language arts portion of staffing and curriculum efforts across the district and merging that with the programs that support our English language learners, bringing both those communities of educators together so that they can be constantly improving each other's efforts. There has been a number of professional development trainings that have gone on regarding how we implement our interventions. This is, again, a district-wide effort that allows us to be able to constantly monitor students' progress, and when there are concerns, be able to intervene in a very timely way. Sometimes this can eliminate the need for special education further down the road, and it really is a very proactive approach in terms of the way we deal with our students one-on-one as individualized learners. And one of the key things I think that was discussed, certainly with us, but even more importantly with the educational leaders throughout the district, principals and some of our other lead teachers, is that this intervention activity really is an everyday kind of education initiative. It's not something that's relegated only to those students who are, have already been gone through a special education identification process or are currently functioning with IEPs. This kind of intervention really benefits every student in our classrooms and needs to be part of just our everyday way of educating. From my sense from Dr. Franco during the meeting was that, I'm sorry, Deputy Superintendent Franco, I just gave her a promotion, how nice. We've gotten a good response from our teachers and our staff, and I think even more importantly, we've been seeing good responses from our students in their levels of learning. So that would be submitted as a report of progress, and I would include in that a motion to approve the formally discussed permission to enter item for Greenwood Publishing to provide a K-8 English Language Arts assessment system that matches the needs of Lowell's diverse student population, and this is again to be funded by ARA funds, specifically Title I stimulus funds.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, accept the report as a report of progress.
Motion to approve for report of progress.
Yes,
We can
and
do that
I
first.
think we should
And then
take-
motion to approve.
Seconded by Ms. Doherty. And I think we should have a roll call on the report, because there's quite an awful lot
Yeah,
involved in that, stimulus money and so forth. Excellent report. I must compliment the person or persons who record all these minutes. I should applaud you for all this hard work and all the trees that have been sacrificed. Roll call.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield,
Yes.
Mr. Conway.
Yes.
Miss Doherty,
Yes.
Miss Fattacante.
Yes?
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
And Ms. Martin, what's before us now is the Greenwood Publishing. That's the portion we delayed.
Motion to enter into contract, Your Honor, with Greenwood Publishing.
Motion by Ms. Fattacani to move for approval, second by Ms. Martin. Any questions, any debate? If none, roll call.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
Miss Fattacante.
Yes?
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
John, do you have a question?
Sure, I just had a comment on the meeting. It was a very well-run meeting. The information was good. I just had a couple of things that I did bring up at the meeting, and that I would ask that the stimulus money, and we brought this up at the meeting and discussed it, that any monies, there's quite a bit of money for the stimulus and the ARRA stimulus funds, that if we don't spend all the money for, say, like the coordinator's position, that any of these monies will obviously be used for, if we can afford one more reading tutor, or if we don't use all the professional development money, can we make sure that we keep an eye on this, and if we can afford one more reading tutor for the middle schools, I think that would be money spent wisely, because as I brought up before, we have certain salary caps, I guess, for these coordinators, but who's to say we have to stop there? So if we can start lower and save $15,000 and put one more trained tutor in the classroom, I think our money's much better spent there. And same thing for the other sheet. Any money that we save on professional development, if we can use it for one more tutor, I think it would just help us immensely. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Madam Superintendent, I do have a question. Maybe you and Jay could answer it. The stimulus package in our budget, we're looking at $4.2 million, and now we're receiving $3.7 million. How are we going to make that $500,000?
Actually, it's more than that. Jay, do you want to give him the breakdown?
Yeah, when we did the finance subcommittee minutes, there was an outline of the costs, and it was approximately, well, we had budgeted 4.2 million, but the number came in at 3.7. The actual difference was, I believe, 557,000, and we accounted for that in two ways. One, we took the amount of money that was held in the suspense account, which was 230 some odd thousand, and the remaining balance, for the time being, we reduced from the utility electricity account so that we could get into have a balanced budget, get into the fiscal year, and then actually see what funds might be available at fiscal year end '09 that could help offset. Take a look at what our actual staff costs are going to be come September 1, once all of our teachers are hired and in place. And then we'll look at the accounts and reassess the situation at that point. But off the top of my head, it was about a $350,000 problem once you took the money in the suspense account aside. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, we voted on that a few minutes ago, actually. to
Yeah,
make
that
those
came up under the
transfers.
finance minutes. So we do have a balanced budget to start the year. And then I'll provide more information at the August meeting when we get together with regard to what our fiscal year-end balance for '09 was. And then probably by the time we get to October, we'll have had the July, August, and September unemployment bills. And at that point, we'll have a good idea of who's actually collecting unemployment, who's been reemployed, and we can then do a projection for the remainder of the fiscal year to see how much funds we actually do need to hold in reserve and what we can then possibly shift to offset some of that $350,000 in funds that we still need to carry.
Was that your question, Your Honor?
Yeah, my concern was, were we looking at more anticipated cuts? If we are, I'd rather address that now, rather than wait till the school.
Yeah, we're actually doing everything we could to not have there be additional cuts at this point, and that's why we're using the school committee suspense account, as well as just underfunding the utility account to get us into the year so we have a balanced budget, and then we'll work to find that $350,000 after, as the summer and fall progresses.
Okay, thank you very much. We're moving on to the reports of the superintendent. Madam Superintendent?
Yes. The end of the year report, the district discipline report is in front of you with regards to the number of expulsions and suspensions and arrests. The end-of-year report for nursing coverage for field trips, and we're happy to say that all of our students who required a nurse this past year to go on a school trip received a nurse, and it cost the district less than $5,000 to provide that particular service. End-of-year report for the Oral Health Impact Project. We're pleased to report that the Oral Health Impact Project, managed by the Community Oral Health Service of Massachusetts, provided dental services to 658 elementary students performing 3,942 procedures within the school setting during this past school year. Every student who participated in the program was seen by the dental hygienist and/or the dentist at least twice during the school year, with our doctor serving the district as the district dentist. Tufts Community Dental Program continued to partner with CMOHS by dedicating a dental hygienist to the district for 2.5 days per week. The dental hygienist provided screening, cleaning, case management services, and Tufts Community Dental Program also continued to present their first experience oral hygiene educational program to all preschool and kindergarten classes. In addition to the OHIP services, the Middlesex Community College Team Seal program provided 439 sealants and fluoride treatments to 151 second grade students during the 2008-2009 school year.
Okay. All set, Madam Superintendent?
Personnel report as well as presented, and also at this time, I would like to announce to the committee that Tim McGillicuddy, the previous principal at the Rogers School, has given us his resignation from the district, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank him for his 12 years of service with Lowell Public Schools. He's a very committed and dedicated professional who really went beyond the call of duty for his students, his staff, and for our community. So I'd like to bring that to the committee's attention. As well, the list of eligible teachers. And that's all of the reports from the superintendent.
Thank you.
All 5 reports.
There's one report that requires a roll call. I believe it's the field trip nursing coverage. So when we just take a roll call on the entire superintendent's report. What's that? There's $5,000. The combined yearly cost for nursing coverage for field trips was just under
Yeah.
$5,000.
No, Your Honor, I think that's just telling us that's what was spent on nursing coverage. I don't think we're approving this expenditure.
That's correct.
It's an update on a cost.
You just want to take accept the report of progress on all of them. That's fine with me.
Yeah, I
So
think that
moved by
would be...
Ms. Martins, seconded by Mr. Conway.
All those in favor?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The reports have been accepted.
Oh, here it is. Here's the request.
I was waiting for
Might
someone
be
to
in
tell me
here.
to take a roll call.
It is?
No, because the city pays for the nurses, I
Convention
think.
and conference request? Go, Ms. Fattacani?
Your Honor, I
Yes.
think we need to take number 4 separately, so I'm going to make a motion to allow 1 through 3, and we're going to have discussion on item number 4.
1,
On the superintendent's report?
no, the
Oh.
On the
conventions,
convention conference
Oh,
request, Your
okay.
Honor.
Okay, we'll
approve
take
1
them.
through 3.
1,
1
2,
through
3.
3, move approval.
Okay.
Seconded?
Move approval by Ms. Fattacani on the first 3 convention and conference requests, seconded by Mr. Conway. All in favor signify by...
No,
roll call.
Roll call, sir.
Roll call.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
Miss Fattacante.
Yes?
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Okay, on the 4th request, Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think before, as we discuss this, I'd like to hear the superintendent's rationale for bringing this forward as part of her recommendations.
Yes, thank you. When this particular request for a field trip came in front of me, of course, I pay particular attention because there are some days that the students will be out. So I pulled the new policy, and there are 9 points in the new travel policy for students. And actually, I went through the entire packet, which is about 30-some pages, and ensured personally that all 9 points of the policy were covered off. I did have to go probably 20 pages deep into the document to determine, in fact, what the learning standards were as part of the criteria for allowing them to miss the day, but that too was in the packet. There was one procedural issue that we will continue to perfect, is that the superintendent of schools does not necessarily have time to go through 30 pages, take the policy, go through the 9 points. So before it comes to my desk, the staff who handle the trips will now turn that policy into a checklist. And the checklist will come to me on top of this so that they can go through it and make sure that everything from learning standards, the rationale from the principal on missing the days is there, and that the justification as outlined in the policy is met. And so that's why it's in front of you right now.
Ms. Martin?
So then you've gone through this, you've gone through the packet again. I know their reliance on Wikipedia is impressive. Can I ask then, so with your understanding of the education standards, you're confident that this meets all the requirements as this committee has very clearly stated to you and which was indoctrinated into policy? You're comfortable with your personal recommendation of this trip?
Yes, or it wouldn't be in front of you. That's correct. And just further
Do we have
to
any
that-
other sports teams that are planning trips at this point?
Other teams?
Yeah,
planning
any
trips?
sports teams that are planning trips like this? Any sports teams?
I'm sure there are, but they haven't come to my attention at this time.
You're sure there are?
No, I would think that there's other teams that are going to be bringing forward requests based on our policy. But at this
That will be
time-
interesting to see. I mean, I'm willing to support this based on your expertise in reviewing it and saying that it is an educationally based trip and replaces the value of 2 days of school. And that's, and the expense of paying for 2 substitutes. So I mean, that's, as the superintendent, that's the standard I hold you to. So if you are confident and able to support that, then I will support it for that reason.
Madam Superintendent?
And to that point as well, your policy also states that the principal or the headmaster also has to comment on that particular point, and did so in the documentation. So when I did go through it and actually reviewed the material with staff who are responsible to bring it to me, all of that information was there, was provided.
And we had the information regarding the reason for the extension over into school days?
As per the policy, and I could bring it, the policy forward.
So what, but I mean, what the reason was, I didn't see that in the packet.
Me neither.
Yeah.
So
Why they extended it 2 extra days, was it, I know Mr. Conway mentions that cost savings, is there something, what prompted that?
Actually, the way the policy is written, that is part of, I believe, the issue, but the policy doesn't really specify a cost savings. It's more learning standards and what what students are going to learn. It met that particular part of the criteria of the policy of why.
Because my understanding was that we had instituted this, that groups could have the option, if it was necessary for this to roll over into a school day, that they would need to justify it.
Right.
So I don't know, I see the justification in terms of the educational background, but I don't understand why the 2 extra days are necessary. Because it's what?
No.
So what are the educational frameworks that are being met on Thursday and
Wow.
Friday?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Martin, you still have,
What are the educational frameworks on Thursday and Friday that are being met? Does anybody have an answer to that?
Ms. Dowdy?
There is several pages that are called curriculum frameworks that talk about art, history, Renaissance and Reformation, scientific revolution, enlightenment in Europe, industrial revolution, social and political change in Europe. There's a list of several curriculum frameworks. I don't know that they're specified by a particular day.
They were not specified by the particular day, but it was by the trip as a whole.
Ms. Fattacani?
So I'm sorry that I interrupted Ms. Martin. I do apologize. My concern is that there are no specific curriculum frameworks that are going to be dealt with on Thursday and Friday. Nothing specific. And I believe our policy did indicate the extension was required for some very specific reasons.
Madam Superintendent, go ahead.
Again, this proposal in front of you tonight met the 9 parts of the policy. The policy was very clear. It was, the package in front of you covered all the points of the policy. If we want to redefine the policy further and say, right, so right now as it's presently written, the packet had all the information in it.
You all set, Ms.?
Your Honor, I'd just like to make a motion that we allow these students and teacher to go to Italy, teachers to go to Italy and explore the art, history, culture, language that Italy has to offer as a learning experience. So I would make that in the form of a motion, approval.
I'm not seconding. I don't think the issue is the learning experience. I think each of us agrees here that any time a student leaves the city of Lowell to go and enrich themselves, it is an amazing opportunity. I want some accountability about why students have to miss days of school. This same issue with the same person and the same group came before us a year ago, and that's what spurred one of the things that spurred our decision to change the policy. And here's what I feel, Your Honor. I feel that the extensive use of Wikipedia and throwing in some frameworks made it seem okay. It's not okay. Because other students, Your Honor, other teachers follow the rules. And this person twice has chosen not to. That's what my issue is. Of course it's a wonderful, you've been to Italy, it's a wonderful experience,
I'm going to speak on that, so.
okay? That's not the issue. The issue is that other kids don't get to go and do these things, and when kids miss school, there are repercussions.
I just
That's
want
my concern.
to stress, the students are paying
Your Honor, I
for this
absolutely,
trip. It's not coming out of the school department's funding.
absolutely.
Want
The
to stress
students
that.
paying for it. And they're going to fundraise, they're going to do lots of wonderful things to make them, to enable themselves to go on the trip. Absolutely.
I did have the pleasure, my wife and I
I know you
we
did.
traveled to Italy, we visited Florence, Rome. There's so much culture and history
Amazing.
in Florence, and if 24 students from Lowell High School traveled to Italy, they would certainly come back with a little more knowledge of a country, especially in Rome, where you could almost reach out and touch Julius Caesar's grave, the Colosseum and so forth. The only part I don't like is the $400 that we're gonna have to spend for substitute teachers. Maybe they could come up with some money for that, but,
You know, maybe we should have them fundraise for that money also.
so, I will support the trip. I think it's educational, and many of these students probably never would have ever traveled to Italy or any other country if it wasn't for the leadership and the guidance of these teachers, so. What's that?
You did not have a second. Jim just
I
said.
haven't got a second yet. Thank you.
Ms. Dougherty moved the for approval, seconded by Mr. Leary. We'll take a roll call.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Oh, sorry. Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Dougherty?
Yes.
Ms. Fattacante?
No.
Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 nay, approved.
And I must say, I had pasta every day that I was here.
And I'm sure it was delicious.
Before we adjourn, if you missed the fireworks at the Samples Pavilion on July 5th, and once again, we owe a great deal of gratitude to the Greater Lowell Community Foundation Executive Director, John Tebow, and the business community in this great city. But I want to just let you know how proud I was, and you should be, I know you are proud, of the Lowell High School band. There were 57 musicians, many of them former alumni, many musicians who came just for this concert. And I can't say enough for Betty Sanagatti, Pat Fitzpatrick, Brandon Clark, the entire Lowell High School band committee. They worked feverishly, selling hot dogs, trying to raise money for the uniforms for these kids. And when that band started playing the 1812 Overture, they were only second to the Boston Pops. And Madam Superintendent, would you pass that message on from the committee and the mayor, how proud we were of the high school band and their performance on July 5th. There had to be 30, maybe 40,000 people witnessing these great fireworks paid by the business community in the city. And it's very proud of it. And Mr. Conway, would you like to let it be known how a relative of yours was on the shuttle today and was put into outer space?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My nephew just went up at, I think it was 6:03 tonight after 5 delays, so I'm anxiously waiting to see if everything is okay, but the takeoff was,
To the moon?
oh, he's
To the moon, Mr. Conway?
he went to the space station.
We're
We're very proud of him.
We're very proud of them. And God be with them and the crew.
Thank you.
With that said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leary. Thank you very much.
Okay, adjournment at